Good evening. The hour being after 7:30, it's my pleasure to call the January 10th school committee meeting to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Unfortunately, yet again, we must pause at the beginning of our school committee meeting to remember a member of the Walpole public school community who is no longer with us. Tonight we remember and pause for a moment of silence for Ms. Jane Gula, a longtime teacher in the Walpole public schools who taught at Fisher School with my mother for many years in the 1970s, and after her retirement from the Walpole public schools was a tremendous volunteer in the Walpole community. Thank you. Our next order of business is the Walpole High School Student Report. This evening we have Mr. Scotty Cameron, a man of great stock. His father is a former member of this board, to give us a report of the goings-on at Walpole High School.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Scotty Cameron. I'm a freshman at Walpole High School. The high school has many activities occurring during this winter. The high school sports teams are accelerating this winter. Tomorrow, boys basketball is playing Bishop Feen and has an even record of 2-2. Girls basketball is playing Natick today with a record of 1-2 that should hopefully rebound in the coming weeks. Furthermore, Walpole's winter track team is accelerating past the competition with a record of 2-1. They have a bye week this week, but will be back at it again next week on Thursday. Additionally, Walpole's boys hockey team is competing against Brookline 1 week from today. They expect to extend their winning streak with a record of 6-2-1. Walpole's girls hockey is skating through with a great record of 6-1. They hope to continue their perfect record against King Philip on Friday. Moreover, Walpole's wrestling team has a great record of 2-0. They hope to continue to battle in their next match against Needham. Lastly, the gymnastics team is facing Needham tomorrow. They plan to flip their losing record of 0-2 and create a winning streak. Besides sports, Walpole High School has many other activities. The Student Council and Bus Buddies groups have combined to celebrate the bocce tournament. Walpole High School is hosting this prestigious event against many other surrounding towns this Saturday. Bocce is a difficult game similar to bowling, where you have to throw a ball as close to the mark as possible. The bocce competition unifies students with disabilities and their peers. This event promotes an inclusive school community and is a fun event to watch and play. Additionally, the speech and debate team is vigorously competing this season. With their hard work, they have earned their spot in a regional competition in Florida. Today, they have headed down to Florida and plan to compete this weekend. Also, the math team is continuing to show why Walpole schools are some of the best in the nation. They are determined to make the state competitions after narrowly missing out last year. They are 7th in the state right now and are on track to compete in the state meet. They have their meet today, and a high place could almost guarantee them a spot. Overall, Walpole High School is very busy, with numerous activities for students to get a well-rounded education. Thank you for your work making the schools how they are today, and thank you for your time.
Awesome. Nice job. That was good.
Well, Mr. Cameron, we appreciate your report, and please feel free to stay and contribute this and other meetings, but we do know there's a lot of demands upon you as a young student, so you're free to go at any time.
Thank you.
I will point out, though, there was a great, I think many people in the community saw that you did a lot of sports reporting, that great story in the Globe a couple days ago about the 6 sets of sisters on our hockey team, which is kind of a great thing.
Cool.
So very good. Well, thank you. We're looking forward for you joining us for the rest of the school year and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Moving moving on to our third agenda item, new business, we have the Clifford Home Curriculum.
So Dr. John Quealy will frame the conversation this evening. Representatives from Clifford Academy, formerly Longview Farms, are with us tonight. They're in attendance. They have provided the school district, well, I'll let John put it in context, but the bottom line is they've restructured. They've changed the makeup of the student body for the time being, and they are before the committee for a vote on their curriculum, which is required by Massachusetts general laws, guided by the State Department of Education, and under the authority of the local school committee. So, Dr. Quealy?
Sure. So you might remember when I last spoke with you in the fall, one of the things that I touched on was a restart for the Home for Little Wanderers, now known as the Home formerly. That's a new name?
No, it's always been our sort of shorter name of everything.
Okay.
The Home for Little Wanderers is too big of a mouthful.
Okay. That sort of restart, that process has been ongoing this year, largely on the residential side, and I know there has been residences that have opened on the campus. Students have begun to fill the residences, and so I know we've worked together in getting that up and running. Tonight, you will vote on the next step of their process, which is getting their campus school up and running, which will be called Clifford Academy, serving students in grades 6 through 12. I know that several of you met in subcommittee with representatives from the Home last month to sort of look at the curriculum. I believe that's in your materials tonight, and that is the next step in the process of getting the school accredited and approved by DESE. So this is sort of one step in a process that gets the school closer to opening. I don't know if you have questions or if anyone from the Home had any context to add to the conversation. My role here was to preview and prep you for your vote. So,
Questions from the committee, Mr. Breen? No? Oh. Anyone who was on the curriculum subcommittee report? Any thoughts?
Well, it's hard because we did ask a lot of questions and they were answered and really appreciated. It was a great dialogue. But of course it wasn't an open forum, so I'm trying to think what would be important for people to know about the school. Do you want to share anything about sort of the makeup and the classwork and what you share with us about the specialties aside from the academic piece, all that stuff? Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Renee Dickout, the school principal, and a little under the weather, so you'll have to excuse my voice. I highlight a few things that we had mentioned at the subcommittee meeting, and that we are definitely targeting a new population. Instead of K through 12, we are centering on a 6 through 12 population. We're also sort of focusing more on a vocational program, primarily horticulture, small machinery, and culinary, but then connecting our students with outside partners. For instance, the Medfield Animal Shelter, where we've already established a connection with, so our students can spend some time connecting and volunteering and doing some work at the animal shelter and other local businesses to get some workforce experiences. We've done a lot of work in the last few months building our curriculum, purchasing resources that are consistent with the districts that are sending their students to us. So you'll notice we're using Pearson for a lot of our core content, but we're also paying attention to students that are coming to our school and really falling far behind. So we have invested in Apex, which is a credit recovery program, but also School Connect and Signal Success for vocational and social emotional curriculum as well. We've made the changes around the updates for the DESE curriculum framework changes in history specifically, and just have taken our time to really build a solid foundation for the school we are planning on opening. So I hope that overview gives you a little perspective on what our plans are.
I think I would like to add, in the past we've had some issues with a liaison and contact open lines of communication with Longview Farm, and to that extent, they have added personnel, and they have assigned a liaison for each group of children, whether it's grades 6 and 7, the 7 and 8 group, I think there's an overlap there, and then the high school group. So we've talked extensively and come to some agreements about communication, about the folks letting our professionals know, especially either our adjustment councils, our principals, know about students, so that students can assimilate into our buildings. So they're not coming into our buildings cold and not knowing anyone, so that someone can meet them at the door, introduce them to other children, and place them appropriately in the school. So that has been an issue historically, and we're hoping at this point that has been addressed. So I'm confident that it has.
Further questions of Mrs. Galatea?
I just want to welcome you and thank you for coming to meet us face to face. I think it's always helpful. It really is. And I want to understand that what we're talking about tonight is this program that's going to happen on your campus, correct?
That's correct.
And do you expect to have students coming into our schools as well? And if so, like timing-wise, when do you expect to start with the school on your campus?
Sure.
And that whole thing?
After we finish this process with school committee, we'll then submit our application to Department of Education. And that could take anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks or longer. It's not a really specified amount of time. In terms of our students in your schools, we already have currently students in the high school.
Okay.
And I think with our targeted population, we're now really impacting Walpole High School and not the elementary, Elm, and Johnson, which we were before. There could be an 8th grade student that potentially goes to Johnson. But for the most part, our students will mostly, if they sort of qualify for a lesser restrictive place, then they will go to Walpole High. So we already have 2 students currently at the high school.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
We worked hard with the home over the summer to build in some structures to make sure that everyone is on board and looks at the student's needs and whether it's a match for Walpole High or not, or is the student an out-of-district student. I know our out-of-district coordinator, Christina Pine, who is with us tonight, meets with the clinical staff of the home regularly on a weekly basis to look at new referrals or really keep contact with the liaison that Dr. Lynch was talking about.
That makes sense. That's good. And, Dr. Lynch was talking about the communication. It should be two-way communication, too. If there are needs that you're hearing about at your end, the communication should come to us to see, what could be done to make the relationship successful, I guess.
Absolutely. After our subcommittee meeting, we did share a contact list that I'm sure Superintendent Lynch sort of sent out so that there's lots of people to contact. It's a matter of whom you need to speak to. And Christina Pine has been amazing connecting with us and meeting with us. And she even met with me a couple times over the summer as we were sort of dreaming up this new school that we were opening. So we did lots of school visits and then just hearing from people in terms of what the needs are and what school would be helpful for us to reopen and in terms of our reorganizational plan.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe for
Sure.
the students that are going to be attending the school aren't necessarily all residents of the facility. You will also likely have students from surrounding districts utilizing the school as an out-of-district placement.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So it won't just be residents of Walpole.
It'll be a day school as well as a residential educational program.
That's good. I have one more, if that's
Yes.
okay. You mentioned the fact that there might be a student or students who are living at Longview Farm that need an out-of-district placement. And one of the things that was a problem in the past was that it required a lot of administrative time on the Walpole Public School staff. So I just want to mention it that, if it becomes a large number of students, we'll probably want to talk about sharing that responsibility so that it doesn't take up a super amount of Christina's time.
Yeah, absolutely. We worked with Sherry Engelbert before, and we know that the time and their resource can tend to be a lot depending on how many students we have. And we're meeting weekly with Christina, so as things come up, you know, we can definitely have those conversations.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I add something briefly to that? So one of the things that so I'm the Vice President of Treatment Programs for the home, so I oversee all of
You can
our-
come on up if you like, yeah.
This is fancier than I normally
I know.
I oversee all the res programs and treatment programs for the home now. I came back. I'd been with the home for about 2 decades, came back just as Longview was closing. One of the things that we have been talking about to that point as we're reopening is really staying in dialogue with the school district around when does the burden become something that we need to think about other alternatives to help support the school system around, whether that's having folks that are embedded from our program in there, or that's having, you know, other avenues that we can do some of that with to be sure that there isn't too big of a burden on the school district.
Thank you, we really appreciate that.
Bet.
Further questions from the committee? Just to take a step back for a moment, the vote tonight is to approve their curriculum. The school committee approves the curriculum of all schools within the boards of our town, according to the general laws. Just to editorialize very briefly, very excited to see your reboot, to see that your kind of truncated age group. The Longview Farm has been a long-standing part of the Walpole community for many decades. One of the 4 Gold Star veterans from Walpole High School is a Longview Farm resident, Nick Canaxis, so that you're really embedded in our community, and so we want to see you succeed and thrive. So I'm heartened that we had a really productive subcommittee meeting with us. I know Dr. Goff, Dr. Quealy, and the members of the curriculum subcommittee worked very hard with you. I know you're joined with Carol Johnson, a longtime Walpole super volunteer who's a volunteer at your facility, which we're happy to see. So without other questions, if I could have a vote to approve the curriculum for the Clifford Academy.
Motion to approve the Clifford Academy curriculum.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Breen, second by Ms. Syrick. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 6-0-0. Thank you very much for coming out this evening.
Thank
all
you.
very much.
Thank you and welcome.
Our next order of business is the mid-year FY19 budget review.
Mr. Fisher, the school business administrator, will provide a mid-year report on the financial health of the district.
Thank you. So in your packet, I believe, is the update. Looks like this, 4 lines. First line being salaries and wages for regular ed. Second line, goods and services for regular ed. Third line, salaries and wages for special ed. And the fourth line is goods and services for special education. In the columns, just to kind of highlight rather than just read them off, we have the percent of the budget that each one of those 4 lines is allocated towards. We have the appropriated budget. That's the original budget that was approved at town meeting. Any transfers in to the accounts, then the revised budget, and the year-to-date, how much we've expended, how much we have encumbered or set aside that we know we're going to expend, and then what we anticipate at this point is the available budget. Down below is the offset revenue. These are funds that come in the prior fiscal year and then are allocated toward our budget by town meeting. That would include Medicaid, McKinney-Vento homeless transportation, parking fees that are collected up at the high school, and they are transferred in, and that total $618,000 you'll see above equals the $618,000. And we do, important note, we do deflate our budget by the anticipated receipt of these revenues, so it's not that it sits on top of already established budget. We already account for that. Below that, we have our circuit breaker funding, which is reimbursement for private school tuitions, and that was $1,773,972. So the total offset revenue is $2,391,972. So be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from Mr. Fisher? Mrs. Gallivan?
From the looks of this, I think we're in pretty good shape for this year. Is that how you would, that right now there's nothing there's no glaring problem?
is correct. I was still trying to think on the way here how to sum this up. It's a
No, well, glaring
stable
problem.
year.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. I was thinking about exactly the right way to say it. My other question is, the 2019 circuit breaker money, that means the money you're receiving this, for the 2019 school year, like currently, that's what you're bringing in?
It's based on tuitions from last year, and it's monies that we are receiving this year, correct?
So do you have a sense of what to expect for next year, and is it significantly different from this number?
So it is less. This is a higher number than what we're accustomed to. We're going to budget in a conservative manner. So right now we're looking at around $1.6 million,
Okay.
less than what we have out there this year. Again, we're in the process right now and still trying to get a good sense of where things are going, but definitely less than what we see here.
Thanks, Mike.
Would you like to discuss the audit
Okay.
a little bit?
So the second document that we added in, and I don't traditionally present on this, but I probably should just to give you an update. This is it's a draft version, but it really will become the final version soon enough. Is an assessment of our end of year report. So we take all of our financial information and submit it to DESE at the end of the fiscal year by October. It's actually due by October of this year. So we submitted our information from last year, FY18, and DESE scrutinized that information very closely. They look for any kind of signs of mishandling or things that just aren't done correctly, and they know because they do this for every school district in the state. So we cross our fingers when we send the report in. We do our best. Mark Halfrey gathers up this information. He works in my office and does a fantastic job. He's been doing it for about 10 years. So we submitted this year, and as you can see from the audit report, we came back with no findings. And that's just amazing. And that was the case last year, and I believe it was the case the prior year as well. So it's really a commentary about the fiscal state, stability, accounting of our district, and how we manage our funds. They really look, as you know, from any kind of audit, they look for anything they can find to really highlight or help you improve. And the fact that the report came back empty is really a testament to the hard work that a lot of people do, not just the business office, a lot of people in this district. So I just wanted to highlight that because it really, when people question how we do things, I'd encourage you to reflect back on this and know that those audits say a lot about how we do things in this district.
And I think it's important to note that this is only one audit. We go through two major audits, one by this independent accounting firm, but we also have our what's called a single audit of all our federal grants and all the federal monies that we have. And that's through a different auditor through the town. And that might have, you put $20 on this line that should be on that line, but there's rarely any findings on that report either, and we'll provide that for you too.
That was it. Further questions from Mr. Frisha?
Nice work, Mike.
Thank you.
Seeing none, thanks, Mike. It's always good when you have, it's so good that you can think about it on the ride over. You were working all day on it.
He's being a little humble on that one.
Very good. Our next piece of new business is the 2019-2020 school year calendar.
So we like to provide the school community, school committee, the school calendar for next year. This is a framework. This is based on the existing school year calendar. There are changes, obviously. When you have a change of a calendar year, you have change of dates, and the 26th might be a Monday this year, and last year it might have been a Tuesday, etc. But in general sense, it's the same structure where you have the holiday vacation, the last week in December, up until February 1st. Kids come back on January 2nd. You have February vacation beginning the third Monday of February, as tradition, and April vacation the third Monday of April. You also have, we have taken a leap of faith that teachers will be returning prior to Labor Day. We still have to negotiate that. As you know, it's part of the collective bargaining agreement, and that collective bargaining agreement expires June 30th of this year, 2019. So we have had preliminary discussions about potential either a one-year extension or another three-year deal within the collective bargaining. That remains to be seen. But I've built this calendar based on that to at least give parents an idea of where the majority of vacations will land on the calendar, and what the last day of school is. Right now is scheduled for June 12th, with 5 snow days potential on the 18th. But I would remind teachers, especially teachers and staff, that they should not plan any activities prior to June 30th, because whether we have incredibly poor weather or we have building issues, we have to finish our academic year by June 30th by law, but we reserve the right to go up until June 30th if need be. But as of now, we're planning next year on June 12th. I have built in the same amount of early release days as prior years. And that about sums up the calendar for next year. This is only a first reading, so if you have any concerns or any adjustments you'd like to make, feel free to email me or call the office. Questions?
Anything?
Just that my children will be very disappointed they don't get the 2 solid weeks. They already planned that if Christmas and New Year's were on the Wednesday, they were assuming they were getting that Thursday, Friday off. I said, I don't think so. Wouldn't make good sense.
No. Those 2 days are pretty important on the
No, I
calendar.
said that to them. I'm teasing, but they
Yeah.
already had it planned out for me.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Putting
good
the 2
constituent
sets for them.
advocacy.
Yeah, it is. I figured I'd
Kids are always trying to find a way to finagle a
advocate
day
for
off.
them. Yeah, yeah.
Stuff. Mrs. Galavan.
Just to be clear, this isn't decided yet. This
No.
is like,
Correct.
this
Just
is,
the
it
first
will
reading.
get voted on at our next meeting. So if there's somebody in the community that has questions, now's the time for feedback.
Yep, exactly.
Great, thank you.
And the next regular meeting will be January 31st for those. So that. Yes?
Next regular school committee, yes, January 31st. So the next item on the agenda is the school start and end times, and normally I would not put them in the packet, but this is, as you know, our elementary schools are on a 3-year program where they change start times. So next year, the early schools will be Boyden and Fisher at 8:25 a.m., and the late schools will be Elm and Old Post Road at 8:55. There's a minor adjustment to Feeney Preschool because Feeney has to work in cooperation with Elm Street, so they will begin at 8:30 in the morning. That's really generally a new group of parents too, but you do have some 3-year-olds that come over, stay with us for another year. The afternoon sessions stay the same, but the 5-day with lunch program starts at 8:32. So you have that in your packet. I would make a note that the early release says 11:01 for the high school. It's actually 11 o'clock if you're looking for that minute. So we just saved you a minute on your life. But that's the major news with the starting and ending times. The Boyd and Fisher are the early school next year for 3 years, and Elm and Old Post Road are the late school at 8:55 a.m.
Questions from the committee? Mrs. Galavan.
Can you just go over the preschool again? Because I don't know that it matches what's printed here.
Okay, so the preschool, so if Elm Street was the early school, for example, this year they would be starting at 8:25. I see what you're saying. Let me double check that 8:30 for the final vote.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
just because I wasn't sure. It says 8:45, and I thought you were saying 8:30, so let's just clear
Yeah, the
clear
8:30 was what we got
We
on
got
our
a
desk.
second, we got an extra piece of paper.
Oh.
Right.
My bad.
That's all.
Sorry.
That's good.
No, there was confusion
Good
because
catch.
we had changed that
Okay, sorry.
the first time we sent the packets out. So that's
So the way you presented it is the right way. Thank you.
Further questions? Just for the edification of the committee, not to derail ourselves as we're going at such a good clip, but I did receive a call from School Committeeman Michael Jaffe from Dover, requesting information regarding any studies we had done about school start time in general. Dover is undertaking a pretty large-scale study of the whether or not to completely invert their start times. That's something we haven't done in Walpole, but I'm sure we'll take a peek at their study when they're done with it. We always like to look at things after other districts have done all the work, which he seemed very fine to do. But it was an interesting discussion he had, talking about how it seems that really sports leagues are doing them collectively. It's like, I think the Tri-Valley looked at it as a group, and others.
Canton looked at that,
Canton looked at it.
Natick looked at that.
Just figured I'd report back to the
Can create
telephone call.
quite a beehive.
Oh, yeah. I
Could
think
plan
it's,
on a year-long study, and I'm sure Dr. Goff will enjoy embarking on that journey.
she looked kind of pale when I mentioned it. But I figured I'd report back.
She just got ashen.
Mrs. Galatea.
I'm just trying to clarify those discussion that we're having.
Yes.
Are you proposing something?
No, I
or-
just said that one of our neighbors called us about it. I
Okay.
think that would be, just so you guys know.
We get a lot of calls, don't we, Mr. Buckley?
I don't get that many calls. I get less calls than you do. Anyway, moving rapidly along. First reading, school committee meeting calendar.
Okay.
We're not meeting on Valentine's Day like last year, right? Because that was a big deal.
Every day's Valentine's Day
No,
in
we
my
have a
house.
strategic planning meeting on Valentine's Day instead.
That was a big deal.
So again, the same structure, the same number of meetings, same similar setup for our public budget hearings. Again, I've gone with the August 29th meeting. That seemed to work out pretty well the last couple of years, having that meeting prior to the students arriving, just to kind of close, tie up loose ends. So again, this is the first reading, and I'd be open to suggestions.
I guess I just had a question. We had seen, obviously it was around the MSBA proposal, but we found ourselves with some things that needed like votes in the middle of August. Do we think about maybe looking at one of the goals workshops as having a regular meeting piece to it?
We could do that, sure. You just have to post it 48 hours in
I was
advance.
just kind of thinking, because I know last year we did that, we had to vote, what was it? We had to vote 2 budget items. We had a request for the $1.5 million. So
Right.
I think as we get a better picture of how the town's going to go forward with,
With capital.
budgeting and capital,
Yeah.
I think it might be
That's the point.
pertinent to not be scrambling over the summer. And
Yeah,
give people the heads up.
hopefully we can address the capital issue in June before
no.
before everyone leaves for the summer vacation. You're right, we were behind the 8 ball because
Yeah.
of the change of policy.
Yeah, just something to think about. Mrs. Galatea.
What you can always do is you can post
Post
a
it, yeah.
workshop with a meeting prior, if there's something that needs to get
Right.
voted. So you can still accomplish what you wanted to do,
Yeah.
but, have a 10-minute meeting to accomplish the vote.
Yeah, I agree. It's like my thought was just as we get a better picture, we kind of know now that the 29th is a really bulky meeting with we do a lot of warrants. There's like a lot of startups, so it just might be good to be aware in the future if there's going to be that type of necessity
Okay.
in the middle of the summer too. But we obviously got it done last year. Further questions on the school committee calendar? Seeing none. Moving along. Old business, Massachusetts School Building Authority schedule.
Okay, I had a conversation with MSBA. There's no need for a vote to accept their decision to address the Byrd Middle School and Johnson if it's in conjunction with consolidation, and to basically leave the high school to the community to decide and also to pay for. They were not interested in participating, as you know, with the high school. So I just wanted to update everyone that I have a schedule for the eligibility period commencing April 1st, 2019. It's a 270-day schedule. It includes forming a school building committee by May 31st, representative of many stakeholders in the community. We also have to create an educational profile within 90 days. We have to complete an enrollment projection study by July 1. An enrollment certification has to be executed by September 27th. Maintenance and capital planning information has to be uploaded and compiled by September 27th. And then we need a vote for authorization, but we have that vote for authorization, and I'm waiting for MSBA council to rule on the language of the vote. At the fall town meeting, as you recall, it did include the high school in that vote, and I don't know if we need to revote that or whether the article stands. So we're waiting for a ruling on that, a legal ruling. And if we do have to revote that, it would have to be with different wording based on the MSBA action. That would be at the Springtown meeting. So stay tuned with that.
This would probably be a good document. I know BJ Burke's done a tremendous amount of work on the website. This is probably the good first piece to go into the MSBA tab.
Yep.
The schedule. For folks in the community just to get a sense of, the time frame.
Do that tomorrow.
Questions, Mrs. Gallivan?
Lynn, can you tell us a little bit about the educational profile development and what you see as the school committee's role in that?
Well, it's the first phase of the educational program where you have to basically talk about the structure of your grades, K to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12. Do you intend to change that structure? We have to upload our program of studies from the middle school. I haven't seen the new version.
Okay,
I don't know if Dr. Goff, have you seen it yet?
No, it hasn't, January 14th.
January 14th,
Okay.
they're supposed to provide that to us. But that, I don't think you'll need school committee involvement until we get into the major 350-page educational plan, which will be done with our project manager. But we
I see.
can't hire a project manager until
Right.
we've
Okay,
finished the eligibility.
so this is different from the work
Yeah.
that you do with your project?
Yeah,
Just
it's,
wanted to be sure.
it's
Okay,
more an outline, skeleton.
Okay.
It's not as detailed.
thank you.
Further questions?
So after the feasibility study, just to kind of recap, like the time period after that.
Okay. So you have this 9 months, the eligibility period. Then you have to hire a project manager, month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever that might take. You do the feasibility study, which will probably take 9 months. So now you're looking at a year after this 9 months.
Yep.
So we're almost into 2 years. You then study all the options, including renovating, construction additions. The town has to decide on an option, preferred option. MSBA has to agree to that preferred option. And then once you have that agreement in place, then you can go to the ballot. So that could be a year beyond that. So you could be looking at 3 years from now before you start construction. I'm being conservative, yeah, we could accelerate as much as possible. And then any construction, if you renovate existing buildings, that could be a year and a half. If you build a new building, that could be 2 years. So you're looking at 5 years before students walk into either a renovated school or a brand-new middle school. It's a long process. So we're into 3 years now, it'll be 5 more, now we're 8 years. And then to get into the building, that's what you're looking at, an 8-year process. Yep.
Further questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Okay, the first, I'd just like to remind the public, we have public budget hearings at the high school, January 15th and 17th. The first evening, we talk about goods and services, pretty much everything that doesn't breathe. Classroom supplies, software, special ed tuitions, transportation, heating, those type of accounts, they're called goods and services. The second day, we talk about personnel, salary and wages. We zero-base that budget. And then the third day, which is January 22nd, is a contingency if we can't get through day 1 or day 2. In the first 2 public budget hearings. They have been advertised in the local paper as required by law. So that's just a reminder. Second item, strategic planning reminder is February 7th and February 14th. We'll need 2 days. We're creating a preferred future for the next administration. We have been in contact with a facilitator, a former superintendent from Shrewsbury, Tony Bent, who is very active with new superintendent induction program. And we're hoping to do a complete SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats the first day. And then the second day, we'll go through the goals, objectives, and action plans based on the work of the 60-plus member Strategic Planning Committee on February 7th. So that's the plan. And the end product will be a 5-year plan beginning July 1.
Excellent. Questions on Mrs. Gallivan?
Just a thought. Considering that this is a full, like, start over again type of a day, and there's a value in having the people who have been able to do it in the past be on there.
Right.
And to a certain extent, some of the people have to be, you know, department heads. Like, there's going to be a certain amount of same people in the room. But there's a value to the people that are newer to the community. Does it make sense to try to do some sort of a survey to gather information from the people that, you know, maybe can never make a meeting like this but have good ideas? Or is there a way to bring in new people as well as maintain that core group that you pretty much need anyway?
We thought about that, and we actually had a company come in called Thought Exchange, where you have an electronic, almost like an electronic blog exchange of thoughts, where you would throw a question like, what do you believe the strengths of the district are? What do you believe the weaknesses are? Open-ended, and they can type in their thoughts, and it would calculate everything and create almost like a qualitative analysis where you would have themes starting to bubble up to the surface. These are the strengths, the top five strengths. These are the top 5 weaknesses. Some districts have used that, but then the bottom line came in at like $27,000. Very heavy, the price tag. And that's every year. That's not a one-time purchase. So now we're looking at alternatives. So I think it's important to do that, but I don't think you could use a traditional survey where it's almost guiding people on how to think, you know, by the way the questions are asked. I think you would have to have really open-ended narratives where people could type in. That's what I would think would work best.
Well, the minute you
like
said you lost me the minute you said the 27,000.
I know, you lost me too.
You were excited about that.
On the other
I
hand,
was excited about it.
we
but-
did do something earlier this year in terms of surveying the district. And maybe at the very least, we should all review that in preparation, because that did give us some good insight. I guess what I'm also thinking of is some of the newer teachers or newer parents.
Survey the
And
staff.
find a way to just hear what they're saying, especially, like I remember hearing the woman who just started as the ELA coordinator at the elementary schools. She had some great ideas.
Yeah.
So just somehow maybe, without spending $27,000, get some of those ideas.
Okay.
Further questions? Concerns? Excellent. Moving on to
Third item
personnel.
is personnel. I know that Colleen Duggan, principal at Fisher School, has announced to her staff and to her parents this evening, or last evening, that she plans to retire at the end of the school year. I think it'll be a great loss for the district. It'll also be an opportunity to do a search and find a replacement. I appreciate Principal Duggan giving us the opportunity to get out early and find the best possible candidate. We'll put together a schedule similar to what we used for Old Post Road and Elm Street. That seemed to work very well with focus groups, et cetera. Site visitations, for example. But I would like to thank Colleen publicly. She has created a student-centered building where her teachers are engaged, the students are engaged, and it's a welcoming facility. So I would like to thank her for her 12 years. We started together, as did Principal Goff as a principal, but she had 14 years before that in the district. Colleen came from another district and has done a phenomenal job. So she will be missed, and we'll have to get to work to find her replacement.
Thoughts, comments? Mrs. Gallivan?
I sometimes really resist change, and I wasn't happy to hear this by any means, except for her sake.
Right.
I mean, 12 years is a really long time in the world of principals, and she's given us so much to be really, really proud of. And for the Fisher community, I know that it always feels like you'll never find somebody this good, but the Fisher community didn't think they'd find anybody as good as Jean Kenny. And the Boyden community didn't think they'd find anybody as good as Sue Evans.
Mike
But then
Stanton.
it was Mike Stanton that you couldn't be just as good as. So it's awful in the moment, but I think we should all think about the fact that, boy, she's given a lot of her blood, sweat, and tears, and she's established something that lives on years beyond her. And, yes, there's a little bit of disappointment selfishly, but she deserves a lot of credit. She's done a great job.
Anything else? Very good. Moving on to subcommittee reports, we have the FY19 foundation budget per pupil enclosure. Mrs. Gallivan, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I wanted to at least put it out there for people to take a look at. I had mentioned in the December meeting that I've said this before, so I say it somewhat reluctantly, but I do think that the foundation budget is getting attention at the state level this year. It's a priority of the governors, it's a priority of Senator Spilka's. And the more it was just in the news today. There were meetings this week, so excuse me. I think that it is a priority going forward. I know that I've learned a lot through the Suburban Coalition, and I've learned a lot through the meetings that I've gone to at Tech. And what I was trying to do here is sort of summarize a whole bunch of thoughts. But the main point that I was trying to make is, unless we work to come together with a massive solution, I don't think anything's gonna happen. And I'm tired of nothing happening. I think it's really, really important for us to work across the state with people whose needs are very different from ours, as well as people whose needs are similar to ours. And when you look at this information, it's easy to get caught up in saying, wait, why does this town get more Chapter 70 money than we do? Like if you go down that middle column, it tells you Chapter 70 per pupil. And some of it really, really is very hard to justify. On the other hand, when you look at it as a whole, it's a pretty good system. And Proposition 2.5 makes it almost impossible for the legislature to make a change abruptly. Like, in other words, if they say, this particular town is getting way too much Chapter 70 money, and we're not doing that next year, it causes a catastrophic problem in any one town, because the town can only raise revenue by 2.5%. So if the state takes away a big amount of money, they would be laying off people right and left. So they have to do things progressively. And they have done that. And that's one of the things that I was trying to look at when I looked at like the Chapter 70 increase over the last 10 years. They've tried to make some changes, and advocating for the importance of addressing the Chapter 70 funding formula, I think, should be a job of all of ours, and I think we should share as much good information as we can. But some of us have been at this for a good long while, and I'd love any insights that you have, because basically what I'm trying to do is get ready for the legislative breakfast that we're having in February, and knowing how to talk effectively with our legislators. One of my concerns is we need our specific legislators to understand the challenges of districts like ours. It's very easy to look and say, wow, it must be really hard for Chelsea, for example, who has an actual net school spending which is very, very close to their foundation budget. Most of us in the suburbs are operating on an actual net school spending significantly higher than the foundation budget. And we look at the foundation budget and say, that's not an adequate number. Many of the cities don't bring in revenue to give themselves anything more than a foundation budget. Now, that's a philosophical problem that they have to deal with themselves, because some of them don't tax to the full extent, and they could if they wanted to. But they have a different set of problems than we do. What I thought was interesting is, in many ways, we're more similar to Boston than I realized we are. Boston spends a lot more in actual net school spending than their foundation budget requires them to do. And they have had very little Chapter 70 increase over the last 10 years, less than we've gotten. So to me, that's something that we can point out to our legislators to say, team up with those people, because our needs are more similar than you might think they would be right off the bat. So there's a lot of information in here. My point is to try to put some information out there to help people to understand all the components of it, and not necessarily to like go to our legislators and say, why are they getting what we want, but to look for themes for how can we work together to make a comprehensive solution. And that's what I tried to put together on these considerations at the bottom. So the Suburban Coalition's legislative breakfast is Friday, February 8th. That's a definite. And it's going to be held in Natick this year, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. So hopefully some of you can be in attendance, and I'm going to put some more time into this, but I just thought it was a good way to start the conversation. And I would appreciate any thoughts. Bill?
It's Tech's legislative breakfast, right?
Yeah, what did I say?
Suburban Coalition.
Oh, yeah, Tech's legislative breakfast.
Those were
yes.
fun too, back in the day.
See, what was the date again on that?
Friday, February 8th.
No, I think, Nancy, I think you're quite right. Like this week at work, we had, the governor's filing a bill. Mayor Walsh came out in very strong support of Senator Sonia Chang-Diaz's bill. Rep. Rogers is filing a bill. I know because I worked on it this morning. There's a number of, I was with Alice Peisch about 3 hours ago on another matter. She's excited to kind of roll up her sleeves if she remains chairman of education. I think it seems, as somebody who works up there, that we've moved from the why into the how, and I think that's really important. And the fact that the governor and the mayor of Boston, who are two people who are incredibly prominent in their political kind of bully pulpit, have pegged this as one of the largest priorities for the year. I think that's really good, and I think that there's 25 new members of the legislature just in the House. Which is a large percentage, and most of them ran, many in suburban districts, on the need for this type of reform. So I think there's a lot of open-mindedness around the issue, and I think Commonwealth magazine, Larry DeCara did a piece, I want to say 2 months ago, about how the solution can't just be a city solution or a suburb solution, that we have to, that we're doomed to failure if we break it up into those type of winners and losers. So I think that's going to play out over this budget cycle, as well as the other things that drive our budget, like, as Mr. Fisher was just talking about a half hour ago, circuit breaker and things like that. And do we, as a means of immediate help to districts, do we maybe look at the way we fund the circuit breaker as well, and all the other kind of component regulations? We haven't talked on this committee for a while about the revisited look at, what really is an unfunded mandate, and do we have the opportunity for a really robust, it's been a few years since Foundation Budget Review, maybe a really robust study just talking about where these mandates actually come from, so we can perhaps maybe address them at that point. I think there's a lot of, while Chapter 70 is the largest structural piece, there's a lot of other smaller pieces of funding that also can have a really strong impact on a district. So, and we saw that this year with the fight to fully fund Chapter 70, I think, and that was helpful for our district, which was good.
Right, the circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker.
Chapter 70 was a lot of help.
No, right, it's the circuit breaker.
Right.
So. Ms. Buccini?
I just want to thank you, Nancy, because I heard Chang Diaz on the radio the other day, and Mayor Walsh, and I was saying, aren't they in a very different position than we are? I was thinking Boston Public Schools versus ours, but now you've spelled it out, because it was nice to hear. I felt like, we're all on the same, kind of coming to the same place with this, but I wondered why they were so much, and now I see with your table, they're actually in a very similar position to we are. It was surprising to hear that.
That's just it. And it is related to the fact that you can't change anything too drastically because of Proposition 2.5. And it took it took a while for Boston to be in the position that they're in. But I can't imagine what it must be like to try to run a district with the needs of,
Right.
Some of these cities have so many more kids who go from school to school. You're lucky if they're in one school district for a full year. And so, then they have English language learners and more severe family scenarios and special needs. I can't really imagine how they can be trying to accomplish things on the operating budgets that they must be working with. On the other hand, when we look at Massachusetts schools as being #1 in the country, the city schools are also part of that. They're a significant part of that, and they compare well to other city schools across the country. So, I sometimes run these ideas past my dad, who's 94, and is kind of conservative. And, his thing is, well, show them that you're getting good results, because people will invest if they feel like there are good results. And really, there's an awful lot of work to do. I think it's great that it's becoming a priority. The problem is, where's the money coming from? And that's where the more informed we are, the better we can talk with people to help them understand the value of investing, because we can't just lay it on the feet of our legislators to say, go find the money. There's going to have to be different proposals as far as revenue. And as much as I was interested in the potential of the millionaire's tax, there's a large part of me that's glad it didn't come to ballot this fall, because I don't know that we had the buy-in from towns like ours. Because you have to feel like you get something back if you're going to buy into a new revenue source. I think the buy-in across the state is super, super important.
Well,
I think for us, it's not only where does the money come from, how will you find the money, it's where does it go once you do find it.
Right.
And when I reviewed Chen Diaz's proposed legislation, it was very heavily weighted to the urban centers, very heavily weighted to low-income student, as opposed to the identified shortfalls of special ed costs for all districts and health insurance. And we're all feeling that. And I look at the per pupil expenditures like Boston, almost 2,000 more per pupil than we spend. And, a lot of that is transportation. And that could be another area we have to look at. Are other districts working as hard as we are to be efficient? And if they aren't, why should they be rewarded with additional Chapter 70? So, I think that, we have to be at the table too and say, we struggle too, because a lot of the kids who are struggling in the urban centers move to Walpole too. and then they become our responsibility, and we embrace that. But we can't just continually siphon money to mandates like special ed, et cetera, at the risk of reducing the effectiveness of our regular ed program. So I agree that we need to get great communication with our legislators and improve the revenue. But once that's determined, how do all boats rise together?
Right.
Knowing that the cities do have a higher percentage of low-income kids, a higher percentage of special ed students, that tax revenue. That's my only point. It's just fiscal at this point. I'm not making judgments about different types of students. But we struggle with some of those same issues. We had a student today that I'm finding that could cost us $115,000 starting tomorrow. So we face the same things when we come into work. Maybe not exponentially as the cities do, but I think we also have to attend these legislative sessions, have to attend the tech breakfast to give them examples of why it should be equivalent across the state. Maybe not equal, but at least adequate and equivalent. I hope that makes sense.
Well, yeah, if everybody got to an adequate point,
Yeah.
one town is going to get more or less money based on facts.
Right.
Facts like how many low-income students are you trying to serve?
Right.
How many special ed students are you trying to serve? Then it becomes more fair.
Right.
One of the things that also really factors into it for a city like Boston is the number of kids that go out to charter schools. Right off the bat, 17% of their budget goes out the window. And it is special ed, but in their case, it's much more so charter schools. And that's a different kind of challenge, because some of them are stable and they're going to last. Some of them, they're going to be sending those kids right back to the Boston Public Schools before the year is over because they're not stable. So that factors in there too. So I would really appreciate it if anybody just looks at this and tells me, different from what I've sort of noted as considerations, what jumps out at you. One thought that I had was, and I don't understand, there's probably more to it than I understand. I don't understand why the vocational technical schools get such a higher foundation budget. Not even actual spending, but they don't have to pay any of those special ed costs. Right. And
I have had that conversation, and it started back in 1993.
Because that's the way we always do it.
And what the rationalization was that they had to hire professionals who had already established themselves as plumbers, electricians, et cetera, in the vocational fields. So they were hiring people, say, 20 years into their career, whereas we can hire people out of college for, say, an elementary school teacher. But my argument was, well, show me a physics teacher that I can hire right out of college. And we need to spend more on physics teachers. We spend more on just as much on psychologists, adjustment counselors, speech and language therapists that they necessarily may not have to spend money on. Although they whatever special ed students they can handle within their building, they do.
Yes, but I'm talking about
a district at 200,000, 100,000, 50,000 plus transportation. They come back to the local responsibility.
And that's why I did that last column. Yeah. And I looked to see if they really they don't have to pay the charter school costs, they don't have to pay the out-of-district costs. Right. And those are significant portions of our budget. Yeah. So, yes, they might have to pay for the master plumber, but use what we pay for special ed out-of-district costs or charter school costs or things like that. I don't know.
Or the vehicle lift, or the digital, the graphics.
Right, they have different costs, absolutely. But I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it's foolish to make that argument? Or do you?
I think
okay.
I think maybe there should be some adjustment there. And the organic adjustment would be to give more per pupil for special ed out of district, or to increase circuit breaker. I mean, why we haven't gone to 3 times the state foundation on circuit breaker reimbursement for collaboratives, which are public entities, as opposed to 4 times for private school that are profit models, I don't know why that hasn't changed. I suspect it might be because of the private school lobby on Beacon Hill, but I don't know that. You know, circuit breaker would help all districts, and it would help targeted students for actual costs.
The only thing that I worry about that argument is that gives the legislature another year to push this down the road. So, you know, I don't know. I get what you're saying, and I go down that road sometimes, but I think the bigger accomplishment, if it could happen, is to make the Chapter 70 money match actual net school spending. And that's a huge lift, I understand. But I'd just like to sort of capitalize on the fact that it does seem like it's gotten people's attention this year. So, so anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to hear.
Anything else on this matter? Moving on, citizens' comments. Seeing no comments from the citizenry, move on to the approval of warrants, donations, and minutes.
Excellent.
Sarah.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the payroll warrants from December 13th, warrant number S924A, and from the 27th of December, S926A, for the amounts listed in your packet.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sarek, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants from December 20th, warrant 219025, from the 27th, 219026, and from January 10th, 219028, for the amounts listed in your packet.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sarek, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. Moving on to gifts, donation approval. Jeannie.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following gifts and donations to the Elm Street School from the Anacostia Bose Corporation: 54 wireless headphones and 60 sound blocking headphones in the amount of $9,000. To the Elm Street School, Johnson Middle School, Boyden School, Fisher School from Bay State Textiles Recycling, a total of $219. System-wide from the Litters Environmental, general donation, $100. To the Bird Middle School, Fisher School, Daniel Feeney Preschool, OPR School, Boyden School, from Life Touch National Studios Photography Commission, a total of $9,696. To the Elm Street School, Old Post Road School, Fisher School, and Boyden School, from the Dedham Institute for Savings, general elementary school donation, total of $1,500. And system-wide, Bobby's Auto Repair Commission, $1,028.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Ms. Sarek. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. Approval of minutes. Someone would like to take them.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the school committee executive session meeting minutes for November 29th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600.
A motion to approve the curriculum subcommittee meeting minutes for December 13th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600.
Motion to approve the school committee regular meeting minutes for same day, December 13th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600.
And lastly, a motion to approve the school committee executive session meeting minutes for December 13th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Mr. Breen. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. Is there a need for executive session?
Brief executive session for the purpose of collective bargaining strategies.
Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of collective bargaining strategies and to not return to public session?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gallivan,
Second.
second by Mr. Breen. Poll the committee.
Yes.
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 Very good. Thank you.